Time to talk about that offensive line. Really, the guys that make everything happen and get the least recognition. Now, Paul Alexander, the line coach for the Cincinnati Bengals, he says we're in the security, protection, and insurance business. And I believe him, and I think he's right. Let's talk about the things they have to do. And first off, some problematic issues for them that are now surfacing in the game. 2010, great example. Dom Capers, the defensive coordinator of Green Bay, realized, hey, these 5 guys can't move. Why would I have players that are lined up in front of them and making their life easy? Go back and watch what the Packers do, and you'll see more teams doing it. 2 defensive linemen working down the line of scrimmage, trying to occupy all 5. The offensive line is being challenged this offseason to figure out what they're going to do about it. Second problem for offensive linemen, athletic discrepancy. There is no greater discrepancy in athleticism between an offensive lineman and a defensive end pass rusher. The left tackle's a 325-pound guy. He might be against a 260-pound guy that can really run 4.5 in the 40. So really look at this and compare the athletic problems that an offensive lineman has with a defensive lineman. Doesn't happen at any other combination of positions in the game. Let's break down the positions for you. Now, the left tackle, we all know that that guy is the premier pass rusher. He's the highest paid lineman. He's asked to block those super fast pass rushers by himself. Rarely are they going to help the left tackle. If they have to help the left tackle, there are going to be sacks all over the place because defenses know what to do. You got to have one that can do it. Think Joe Thomas, Cleveland Browns. He never gets any help. Jake Long rarely gets any help. Those are the kind of guys everyone's looking for. Let's move to the left guard. Big power player, but he's got to have movement skills. Everyone's trying to run some form of a G power. That's where we're going to pull the left guard, bring him to the right side for the power run game. So he's got to be athletic enough to do it. This was Alan Faneca's spot. Now think Steve Hutchinson. He's the best in the business. Let's move to the center. He's the brains of the organization. He's the guy who's going to change the protection calls every time the defense changes or every time the quarterback changes the play. Think Jeff Saturday in Indianapolis. Saturday told me 10, 15 times a game he might have to change a protection call with 3 seconds left before the clock runs out. You better be a pretty smart player. Don't have to be naturally big in there. 6'2", 295 can play in this league. Right guard, think Chris Snee, the New York Giants. Big, powerful guy, probably not going to pull a lot. We want a player in there that can get some movement on a defensive tackle. Every 4-3 defense is going to have a player over that right guard. Can he get some movement on a 325-pound lineman? That's what you want from your right guard. And the right tackle, another big power run blocker, and you're going to have to help him in pass protection. Can't have it both ways. If he can run block and get some movement on a big defensive end, the left defensive end in pro football, typically bigger than the right end, maybe 295 pounds. That's the kind of guy. Justin Tuck will play there on rundowns. You got to get some movement on him. That guy's going to get help from the back as a chip or a tight end who normally lines up on the right side. That's what you're looking for in the offensive line. Well, we're deep into the running game now. We're going to break the running game out, and the book does a good job of this, I think, in breaking it into angle blocking plays and zone running plays. Zone running plays will be our first stop. This is an offense that I think really became popular under Alex Gibbs. I coached with Larry Bechtel, who was involved with Alex Gibbs, and we ran a lot of zone running scheme. I had the opportunity for a couple years to work with our offensive linemen in this blocking scheme. Why do I like it? I like it because undersized linemen can play in it, and guess what? On draft day, the undersized guys are left on the board in rounds 5, 6, and 7, and for a personnel guy, that's the place you'd like to buy them. They're cheap in there, and they can function in this scheme. It also is an opportunity, and I think what drove people to the zone scheme was the amount of stunting people were doing in the 4-3 defense. So as I went to block a tackle on the snap of the ball, I thought he was mine. He'd disappear and go somewhere in a stunt, and I'd be left with no one to block. The zone scheme answered that problem, and it's been developed nicely and answers a lot of problems even against a 3-4. Here's what you want to look for in a zone scheme. You'll know by the time you watch your team if they're a zone run team. The first thing you want to see from them on the snap of the ball, it's choreography. Everybody's moving together. Nobody ever pulls in this scheme, and everyone's going to step with the same foot. So if it's a zone running play to the right, their first step is going to be a drop step with their right foot. Why are they taking that drop step? They're taking that step to identify after the snap what your team is doing, a post-snap read step, if you will. The second thing they're going to do is take a directional step to the gap they're responsible to block, and they're going to block whoever shows up in that gap. And I'll demonstrate that on the board. Drop step, directional step, engage. They all want to get their hands in on the jersey numbers of the defender, and then with a wide base, they want to drive, block, or as the line coach, Larry Bechtel used to say, road grade them. If you don't see a wide base, what you're going to see right away when you're watching the play is you'll see that lineman fall, drip right off and fall to the ground. When you go back to watch the play again, and you can do that at NFL.com on the rewind, you can watch and find out why. You should know why a zone play did work or didn't work. Again, drop step, read the defense. You might ask me, well, do you take that drop step if that defender's on top of me? You do still take a drop step. Why? Because he might be moving. And as I show you that now in the zone scheme, you'll understand what happens. Okay, if we call for a zone run play to the right, we're going to hand the ball to this running back. We're going to run to the right. Every lineman is going to step with his right foot like this, a drop step, and see what's going on as the fullback comes out this way himself, and he's going to land up taking whoever shows up there. As we take that step, the lineman not necessarily knowing who he's going to block. The guard, you can see his drop step, he's taking himself into that gap, the B gap, all right? And he's going to say to himself, I'll take whoever shows up in that gap. And on the snap of the ball, the defense that thought they were tricky said, we're going to stunt him right here. Who's the guard have? He comes right up on his directional step, engage, and he's got him. On the snap of the ball, if he stays in here, the tackle has him. On the snap of the ball, if he goes outside and the middle linebacker blitzes, you can see that the tight end doesn't chase the Sam linebacker. He goes right to the middle linebacker who came to him. The drop step gives him a chance to see that blitz or that twist or that stunt show up. So they show up with the right players. The backside has the same situation. They've got a little different technique. They know that the play's going away from them, so they're trying to cut defenders down. When the ball snapped, if that player goes there, the guard has him, but he's trying to cut him down. As this happens, if the end goes outside, the tackle doesn't wait. He doesn't turn back for him. He took his directional step. He now goes upfield, and he cuts off the will linebacker. That's how they get a hat on a hat. Ask this question. Well, who had the end? What if the end takes one step out and comes like that? All of these zone plays, the quarterback runs a bootleg off it, and he comes out this way to hold the final defender. It's a beautiful scheme. You can play with undersized linemen. You can handle every front that shows up after the snap. That's why head coaches like putting this offense in. It has some problems in the pass game. Here are the problems. These undersized, good linemen that can handle all these directional steps, scramble up and find players, sometimes they're not big enough in the power bull rush game of the defense when it comes time for the pass. Teams are working to get bigger in there. They've got to balance up what they do. Remember, as good as that looks in the zone run scheme, we're still going to throw the ball more than we run it. So they're looking for players over 300 pounds now that can do both. Second phase of the running game, angle blocking. Now, this was very popular in the 80s and 90s. Actually, it goes back to Vince Lombardi. Remember Vince Lombardi? You've seen all those spots of him with the power sweep. That's an angle blocking play. That's where we're going to block people down, get them on an angle, and we're going to pull people. All right, so angle blocking plays, we are going to determine where we're going with the blocking scheme. We're not going to read it. We're going to force it on you, and we think we can do that. A lot of teams that run angle blocking plays will tighten the splits between the linemen so you can't get away from them. And they like to do it against 4-3 defenses that they can get them to set up and handle it. So we're going to talk about angle blocking plays at the board in a minute, and keep a couple things in mind. We'll talk about the lead play with the fullback leading up in there off a double team. We'll talk about a sweep. We'll talk about G-power. So let's get to the board, angle blocking teams. Now, late 90s, early 2000s, it was religion. You were either an angle blocking team or a zone blocking team, but you weren't both. All of a sudden, even Alex Gibbs, the father of the zone blocking scheme, started to put some angle plays in because he saw the defense was playing to the zone scheme. So now everybody's blended everything together. You need to recognize the value of the angle blocking plays. We'll take you to the board. We'll take a look at a couple of them. Okay, what we have in front of us here is a 4-3 under defense. Defensive tackle to the weak side, defensive end, a Will backer, okay, a Mike backer, a Sam backer, and there's the defense. First angle blocking play we're going to want to run here is we're going to take a lead play. We're going to take the fullback and we want to bring the fullback through, and he's assigned to the middle linebacker. Remember before in the zone blocking scheme, nobody assigned to anybody who shows up. This is assignment football. So the guard and the center are going to double team the nose tackle. They are expecting movement. With two offensive linemen pushing him this way, that's what they're looking for. One of those two linemen is going to come off that double team and handle the will backer after they get movement on the nose tackle. The fullback's going to lead right through on the middle linebacker. The tackle is turning out on the end. He has the end no matter what in this scheme. The tight end has the Sam no matter what in this scheme. And the running back is leading through, and he's following the block of the fullback. Here's the point you want to make. If you see this play run on television, and you see the running back tackled by the middle linebacker, he was tackled by the middle linebacker because the running back was wrong. Fullback can never be wrong. What the fullback's doing is putting his helmet on one side or the other. If his helmet is on the inside of that Mike backer, the running back is to run to the helmet side. So the block works every time. If that helmet lands up on the outside, that running back is to take that play right there. So he's reading the hat of the fullback. Okay, let's get to some other angle blocking plays that I think are important for you to understand. And a lot of times we're going to get into a G-power scheme. We're going to get some kind of angle blocking operation going on. We're going to take advantage of that player right there. Not a bad play in a two-back set, even a better play in a one-back set. We can move this fullback out with motion, take him out of the play. What happens? They're going to make an adjustment. They're going to move somebody over here, and now we get the angles we want. Here's the angle, down block. We talk about a down block. Bring the down block as much as you can. Down block. Oh, there's no one there? Go seal the backside. Down block right there. And now we're going to bring a guard, and we're going to bring that guard, pull him, and get the angle on this guy and run the play right in here. How many of you remember Joe Gibbs? Joe Gibbs was at Washington forever. Everybody ran what he called the counter tray. That was an angle blocking play. Everybody blocked down on the side we wanted to run the ball. They pulled the guard and tackle from the backside and got them in front of the running back. Angle blocking plays. What are the elements of an angle blocking play? We're going to pull somebody most of the time. We're going to have a double team at the point of attack. They'll slide off the double team, and we're going to have people blocking down, angles all over the place. You got to hope that the defense is stationary. The way people are playing the zone scheme, they set themselves up for the angle blocking plays. Look for more angle blocking runs this year than you saw last year. Okay, we're getting deeper into the game now. We're talking about line splits. Now, you can really appreciate these line splits if you happen to have a seat in the end zone, and soon we're going to have the technology for you to watch the game from the end zone. Go to NFL.com on the rewind. Once again, they're already lacing real coaches tape into those games, and they're going to show you the end zone copy. From the end zone copy, you have a very deep appreciation of line splits. All right, and we'll get to that line splits. First, we're going to get to really the stance. To get in your stance, linemen are going to get in one of two stances. You hear about this a lot. A three-point stance, that means their hands on the ground. A two-point stance, they're standing up. Most of the kids coming out of college today, ironically, are all coming from two-point stances. This year at the Senior Bowl, I had a couple of tackles tell me they have never been in a three-point stance. Trust me when I tell you this, to play the NFL game, you're going to have to get in a three-point stance. You will not get a lot of movement on some of these defensive linemen from a two-point stance, and there's too much running game commitment for you to get away with just the two. The problem now with the three-point stance, let's stay ahead of the curve here. Medical people are challenging the three-point stance as dangerous. They insinuate that your contact point is always with your head, and that offensive linemen's later life injuries are coming from the three-point stance. Talk to Roger Goodell about this. There's a motion to get rid of the three-point stance. But for now, we have it. I don't think it's going anywhere for the next couple of years. We'll make sure you understand. Three-point stance, hand on the ground. Two-point stance, hand up. The next thing you want to watch, you can watch this from the sideline of the game. Certainly can watch this at home on television. The offensive line wants to bow the line. Now, they'll be up all flat on line of scrimmage on 3rd and 1. They want to get into people. But on every other situation, they want to bow the line. How do they do it? Center's over the ball. The guard is going to line up his ear to the butt of the center. And the tackle is going to line up to the butt of the guard, so the line is bowed. Why does the tackle want to be off the line as much as he can? And often he'll get caught for that or called for a penalty for being in the backfield. They want to push the envelope in that as much as they can. They need as much space as possible from the defensive end so they can adjust to the things that are going to happen to them in the pass game. So look for that bowed line. Let's go back to the splits now. A normal split, we're talking about three kinds of splits. Normal split is 3 feet. 3 feet between the guard and the center. 3 feet between the guard and the tackle, and then 3 feet from the tackle to the tight end. Those are called normal splits. We have tight splits that can be anywhere from no movement at all, no ground in between them at all, toe-to-toe, goal line, 1 foot, 2 foot. All those fit under the umbrella of a tight split. And then we have wide splits, which are 4 feet or more. And often, and this is why you got to get in the end zone once in a while, folks, when you're watching these games, we'll have variations in the splits, and those variations will give you a tip to a play. Okay, as we look at this play, we're sitting in the end zone. We've already read, take your eye off the ball, so we're not looking at the ball, we're looking at the lineman, and we see normal splits over here. No clue, no hint. We look to the other side, we see a 3-foot split, and we see a tight 2-foot split. That should be a tip right away. It tells you that the guard and tackle are thinking of working together in some form of a run scheme. Okay, that's the first thing it should tell you. Whoa, maybe there's a run play coming over here. They got the split tight, or maybe they're pulling this guard because this tackle has to replace him and they want to tighten the split. Pay attention to the split tights. The tight end of the tackle split, he opens it up wide. Why is he going to do that? He might be looking for a free release. He might want to keep the Sam in the box, and we used to tell the tight end, split to get the job done. So if he'll stay on your outside shoulder at 3 feet, and you move to 4 feet and he stays on your outside shoulder, beautiful. Next play, go out to 4.5 feet. Keep moving your split out till you find out when he says, check, check, let's switch jobs. And if you do that and you find out that if he comes out to 4.5 feet, what have we done? We've opened up a gap for the running game. So tight ends are forever, and they're notorious for opening splits, looking to see if they can get a spread defense. Now, pay attention when your team's playing a 4-3 defense. You're going to see a lot of teams tighten those splits to 2 feet. They know that a one-gap penetrating 4-3 defense is trying to get people in gaps. So if you're playing against Warren Sapp in this day, you're not going to have a 3-foot split in here because you know Warren's going to do it. That's going to be a 2, and that's going to be a 2. 4-3, one-gap penetrating defense, tighten your splits. Now you're playing against Bill Belichick and his 3-4 defense. You're going to want to go to 3.5-foot splits because you know that they're going to be in a 3-4 defense. This guy's an outside linebacker, and you want to widen those splits because those linemen are 2-gapping in the front, and you want as much space as you can. They're not threatening you that they're going to penetrate. They're trying to play in front of the lineman and see where the play's going. So these lines are going to be open wide. So you're sitting at a game. You saw your team last week play Seattle's 4-3 defense. You saw 2-foot splits. But here come the Patriots to town. You're sitting in your same seat. You're expecting 3.5 to 4-foot splits. You know they should be widening them up against that defense. The future of the offensive line. Well, they're not going anywhere. They're all getting bigger, but they're also getting more athletic. A couple of things that come to mind you should keep in mind when you're watching football. First off, no group tighter on any football team than the offensive line. They work together. They know that they're a team. They think of themselves as a group that always has to make everything work as a group of 5. They don't see themselves as individuals. They're also the smartest players on the team. I've administered that Wonderlic test for so many years, it's not even funny. But over a long period of time, the offensive line has always scored the highest on the Wonderlic test. Little point you might like to know. The other thing about the offensive line is coaches, head coaches have dangerously moved away from what we used to do, which was 8 offensive linemen on game day. We have now moved almost every team to 7 offensive linemen on game day, and that's a dangerous habit that we've gotten into. But as Brad Childress, who was the coach of the Vikings, said, once you do it, you can't go back. Instead of having that 8th lineman on the field ready to play due to injury, they're getting a special teamer who can play for 25, 30 snaps. So we're down to 7 linemen, a lot of pressure on the backups. That extra tackle has to be able to get in a left-handed stance and a right-handed stance. He's got to play in a moment's notice against the best pass rusher. And many times, if you lose your left tackle and he has to play, we can't change the scheme. He's got to survive on his own. Pretty important player. And then there's a swing player for the inside, lineman number 7, if you will. He's got to be able to play either guard and center. It's a lot of responsibility. You have to get to the 8th lineman, and that should be a question you have as you read this book. You really should be thinking, how are they going to do it? They're going to take a tight end. Imagine this, a guy who's played tight end. They're going to put a jersey on him that's in the 70s, and they're going to ask him to play. I wouldn't like that. If my quarterback was making $10 million a year, we'd have the 8th lineman. That's a story for another time. Tell you where I think the game's going, and I've been calling for this for a while. We have never, and because the offensive line coaches won't let you do it, we've never gone to a situational lineman. Can you imagine Walter Jones? Guy was a great player, great left tackle for Seattle. He retired. If you told Walter Jones 2 years before he retired, hey, from now on, you're only going to play on pass downs. You're going to come out with that third down back and that slot receiver. Going to jog on the field. Who's kidding who? We know it's throwing time. You use Walter Jones as a pass blocker, get your worst pass blocker off the field. There's no reason not to do it. We've got some excellent players that are older that can't take the grind of the run game and 60 plays. They sure still could pass block. Look for that in the future. I've already talked to a couple line coaches. They're now